Hey everybody, my name is Anthony and welcome to another episode of the Lighting Game Breakdowns. In this series of videos we go through some examples from movies, commercials, breaking down the lighting, framing and finding some ideas that we all can take away from these shots to use in our own work. You can find previous episodes of the show right here. We were analyzing shots from Peaky Blinders, No Country for Old Men, Bridge of Spies, check them out. And today is time to take a look at a commercial cinematography, and we will be breaking down shots from Heineken non-alcoholic beer commercial, stylized to 007 movie look, starring Daniel Craig. But before we dive into the breakdown, let me thank all the viewers and supporters of the show. I really like seeing there is a growing community around these videos, so thank you all, and if you like this content, consider subscribing. And now, let the lighting game begin. The commercial starts with a wide exterior shot as the waiter is coming to Daniel Craig with a bottle of Heineken beer, that's the product we advertise. This whole commercial has a very filmic look, a noticeable grain in the sky, quite filmic looking colors and smooth highlights. From the lighting standpoint, even though it's quite a cloudy sunset, we still have a lot of contrast. The sun, which is somewhere here, provides an upstage key diffused by the clouds. So here's an upstage key by the sun for the whole scene, and we are shooting into the dark side. The background bushes are also backlit by the sun and quite dark, providing another level of contrast for the scene. And the waiter wearing all white clothes, and the company name on bright background, on bright surface, immediately tell the viewer what's important in this shot. So it's the waiter and the company. And that's what's important in commercials. Usually the shot length is very short, much shorter than in feature films. We might have 1 or 2 seconds for the shot, or even less, even half a second for 30 seconds TVC, so it's important to guide the viewer eye to the parts of the shot we really want them to look at. In the meanwhile, Daniel Craig's taxi driver has arrived and Daniel gets in the car. The sunlight here is soft and quite diffused. Take a look at the sunlight nature on the background. There is no harsh sun rays. This particular shot was filmed before the previous one during the day, because the sun now is much higher in the sky. Take a look at the bench on the background and the shadow from the bench. The shadow is right below the object, so the sun is somewhere high in the sky. This is a static shot, and to make sunlight more soft, they position the car in a slight shadow, so I assume they've built an overhead rig, an overhead softener for the car, so it's quite an easy task for a production of this level. An overhead softener rig for the car, and then you keep the windows of the car that is closer to camera opened. So those windows that are further away, they're completely shut down, they're closed. And these windows, this is half opened, this is fully opened, and you let some diffused sunlight enter the car and provide some illumination for our characters, giving some exposure. And then this lady realizes it's James Bond, so kind of an easy discovery. But for us as cinematographers, when we have to shoot something like this and you choose to do it all in camera, it's not an easy shot to pull off. First, we need to be inside the car with all the camera stuff. We need to find an angle where there are no reflections both in the rear view mirror and in the windshield, which might be tricky sometimes. Then we need to balance the exposure of the bright outside. Here's a very bright sky, and dark inside, dark interior of the car, which also presents some lighting challenges. And then we need to have some contrast in our shot for sure, in here on the character face. There is actually a more easy way to do shots like this. Many of shots like this are done by shooting a rear view mirror itself with a camera, probably a camera reflection and a camera operator reflection in it. And you're exposed to the interior of the car, whatever the exposure level it is. And then you have a character sitting in the front seat, and you're shooting him or her from the front, an ordinary common close-up shot. And then in the post you simply compose that close-up image into the mirror. And it's much easier for several reasons. First, you have good exposure for each shot, and then you don't have to hide from reflections in the mirror and in the windscreen, and you have much more freedom in the angle you choose for this shot. This lady decides she has to show off her driver's skills to James Bond. And what do we have here? We are outside the car with the camera. It's still a static shot. The car is about to drive, and first, there are no reflections on the windscreen. On larger budgets, what they do, they can simply remove the windscreen. And it's an easy solution for many problems at once if you don't need to see reflections. What can we do for smaller budgets? Yes, of course, we can choose to shoot with a polarizer on our lens to eliminate reflections, which may help, but sometimes, depending on a light angle, may not completely wipe the reflections off. But another easy solution, which is really available to everyone on every budget, simply place a black material, a black board, or a piece of black duvetine above the windshield, and you can significantly eliminate the reflections on the windscreen. Then we need to create some contrast, we need some key light, and we have probably an LED like sky panel with a diffusion rigged to a car from outside, giving this nice key light on your face. You can see the reflection of this light in your eyes, giving you nice highlights, and on the steering wheel here. Okay, how much level from this key light, from this LED panel, do you need? And that depends on the level on the background you have. On the level here. And here where cinematic cheating can really help you. If you have a very hard background in level, the highlights are clipping, you might slightly reposition the car where the background is a bit darker. Nobody will notice, it's just a blurry greenery, but you may be much happier with the highlights under control. And then, when you're happy with your background, it's not near clipping like here, it's quite dark, and then you can set the key light level, adjusting it to the level on the background. The sunlight here, the sun is coming from behind, here you can see it. And the last touch for this shot is placing some negative fill on the right side, maybe a floppy or a couple of floppies, to dim down this beam on the foreground and provide some contrast on your face. The girl slams the gas pedal, and it's a small, very short cutoff. I included this shot to see how much attention to details there is even for small and super quick cutoffs and details like this. So lots of contrast in this shot. The pedal compartment is not flat lit, but rather has a shaft of light in the necessary spot, right? So we're only illuminating her feet. White laces, of course, also help with the contrast, and some color grading and heavy vignetting on the sides really draw our attention to her feet, to the spot in the shot we want to focus our attention to. Here's Daniel, looks scared of her driving. Soft light comes from behind the car, so probably it's an LED, again rigged to the car, because now it looks like much later outside. And we need some black nag, probably rigged, clipped to the driver's seat in front to provide some contrast on his face. A bit of an awkward framing for me here. I feel a desire to tilt down just a bit. The camera shakes a lot, and sometimes it's good to see something more interesting than just a conventional framing. Daniel arrives, leaves the car, a bit sick of her driving, and forgets his passport on the back seat. Again, it's a small detail, but a good shot. We have a light focusing our attention on the passport, on this detail. It's probably half a second shot. Everything else is darker in shot. So there is a slash of light on the passport and everything else is vignetted. Daniel starts running, chasing the car, and here's a Steadicam shot, and I like how this narrow street with buildings on both sides helps to draw our attention to the perspective and depth of the shot. Daniel is not front lit, his back is quite low in level. The sun comes from the side, which we can assume by taking a look at this shadows, and the bright part on the background, this bright greenery, after dark walls of buildings, also helps the perspective and perceived depth of the shot. I really like this shaft of light in there, whether it's a natural sun or there is actually an HMI doing this, because it breaks the evenness, and this shaft of light creates some interest. Daniel runs on the road up high, and these two old gentlemen see him, and I want to stop for a second on this shot to note the framing here and the composition. I have to admit, if I were shooting this, I would have framed much more conventionally, with less headroom for the gentleman, probably something like this, and the shot would not have looked nearly as interesting. So these guys are pointing up, and I really like the framing idea with lots and lots of headroom and not placing them in the center, so they are placed in the left side of the shot with a lot of negative space, so empty space on the right part. It's dusk now, and Daniel finally runs to where the car is. Is it by surprise that he is wearing all white clothes against dark greenery, dark rocks, this dark background? So we don't have to light him, but we can clearly see him, thanks to the costume. All the things should be planned well in advance, and you gotta get involved in the conversations with an art department. So it's our job as cinematographers to have a word when those things are discussed in a pre-production stage, so we have less problems later on. There is a kind of a social affair in this castle. Daniel enters it, and of course nobody noted that, and it gives us a nice night exterior shot here. So we are basically lighting from one side, from frame left, keeping the other side nice and dark, removing all the light sources from left side of the shot, and the dusk sky provides a lot of fill light, so we are not pitch black on our shadows, and we can shoot with low ISO and protect our shadows from being noisy. Okay, Daniel starts looking for a costume to enter the venue, and what I like about this shot is a nice backlight, and more precise, couple of scratch lights, and the light source in shot. It's quite a flat lighting, and it would have been boring shot with a white wall on the background. So how to add some interest in it? Add scratch lights. Now you have some accents on the talent, so immediately catches attention. Then let's have some layers in shot. Dark costumes on the foreground, then Daniel, then some extras, and then this light and a wall. And then let's keep the level on the wall, the level of light. It's a bit down, it's not shiny white. And now, even though we shoot against very boring white wall, the shot is not looking flat at all. It has some light accents and it has layers of depth. Daniel starts looking for a taxi driver, that lady with his passport, and let's see some ideas in these fast-paced moving shots. So here's a frame within a frame composition. So we are forcing the viewer's attention to the most lit part of the shot, where our hero is for this small window, what our character is doing. So here's a dark foreground, although not pitched black, there is some light. It's not silhouetted. It's one layer, then Daniel working in the second layer, and then this wall with a practical. I think they have placed one more light down the hallway through a diffusion for him. Otherwise, his left side, the side that is closer to camera, would have been much darker. And a nice anamorphic flare, by the way. A series of fast-moving shots when he's searching for the lady, and we are trying to create some depth even in this flat lit environment. So we are shooting behind the objects, we are keeping the foreground nice and dark, and we are leaving lights only on the background. And he finally stumbles upon the waiter drops the dinnerware, they start gathering it together, and then Daniel sees that lady driver coming, and we have dialogue between him and the lady. I really like how this shot is lit. Take a look at this nicely looking upstage key for Daniel coming from frame right. It has just enough power to illuminate his face. It just falls on his face very gently, and then it falls off in this area, giving a lot of contrast to us. It also creates this nice highlight in Daniel's eye. To create this effect, use big soft source with an egg crate on it. So you still have a soft light, but it's more controllable. It doesn't spill everywhere in the room. It illuminates just the area we want, and then it quickly falls off in this section. It doesn't spill onto walls on the background. There is one more light in this scene. The light from frame left, given very gentle, you almost can't see it, very gentle backlight for Daniel, separating him from darker background. Now the reverse shot on the lady, and we see the reflection of that big soft source from the previous shot in her eyes. There is a bit less contrast on her face, which is usually the case with women faces. You don't want too dark, too deep shadows on them usually. This may be achieved by blocking the talent, slightly turning her head left or right. The foreground, Daniel's arm, is very black. Again, we are leading the viewer's attention to the most bright part of the shot, where we want them to look at. And here's another angle on the conversation when she returns his passport saying, "Nice try, Mr. Bond." And that nice key light we had in this shot is much more frontier now. It has less rep and it doesn't reach so far on his shadow side. So his shadow side here, as we had in previous shot. And by doing this, we keep the contrast. So we have a nice gradient from this illuminated part here, and then the light falls off, much less level here, and the fall off here, the shadow. So we don't have a feel of a completely front-lit face. The light is still coming at an angle. Another important thing here is this wall on the background. It still has some level. We still have some dim light on the wall, which is very important to provide some separation of the talent from the background from the left. Now Daniel finally has his passport back and he enters venue, so it's a low angle, tilted up, and we have these interesting lights from the ceiling. So how to avoid harsh shadows from these lights, so-called raccoon eyes on his face? It's easy. If you have any more rows of these lights in front of Daniel here, all you can do is switch them off. You only need these lights for the background. And then you replace these lights, because you need to provide some level on his face, for sure, not only backlighting him. You replace these lights with a soft china ball-like light, which also has to be moved since it's a Steadicam shot, from the front up high. So you see this light, this china ball light in front of Daniel is shining from above. It gives some exposure to his face, but more soft light than these downward facing hard lights from the ceiling. They are nice for the background and give some backlight, but they don't look nice when you stay under them. So you only keep them for the background and you light Daniel's face separately with a more soft light from up high. 007 sits at the bar. This is a wide shot and a nice set design. I really like this curved top light. Leads our eyes directly to the character. Okay, set design did its job, and what we can do as cinematographers to make it interesting. We can add layers of depth with lighting. We keep all the lights off of the foreground, keeping it nice and dark, almost silhouetted in this case, leading our eyes to the most lit part of the shot, to the bar and to Daniel's face. To supplement his lighting, it's easy to hide a lighting fixture behind the bar somewhere here to provide key light from the side to his face. So we are not lighting from the top from this fixture. It's just a practical. We are lighting from the side. Then there is another layer of silhouetted people, completely dark against the wall, and then this wall that is lit from below. So a lot of layers in this shot and some nice curved lines here, the lighting and the bar. This is a really nice looking shot. And on tighter shot of Daniel, now we see the effect of this side upstage key light that is hidden behind the bar. So here is a little reflection of top light on his forehead, and all his key light is from the side, from a fixture hidden behind the bar, as we discussed in a previous shot. So there is this fixture giving this light. So this top light just gives him just a bit on the forehead, this light. And here's the final shot of the ad, the hero shot with the product placement. And as always, we keep the foreground nice and dark. And now we are with the camera on the side the light came from in previous shot. So if we just move the camera without tweaking the light between these two shots, we would have this part of his face lit much more than this. So it will be a downstage key, which we don't want to have. So we might want to tweak this light, this key light, and move it a bit to the background, further to the background. Or we may ask the talent to sit a bit closer to camera. The point here is having that light, the key light, coming from an upstage side, casting shadow on the side that is closer to the camera. So we have an upstage key again. Then nice looking rows of lights on the ceiling, on the background here. And here you can see how much haze we actually have in these bar shots. And this great looking shot is a wrap for today's lighting game. I really like the cinematography of this commercial, and if you want to see more commercial cinematography breakdowns, you're welcome to suggest examples in the comment section below. Again, thank you all for your support, I really appreciate it. Don't forget to check out previous episodes, Peaky Blinders, No Country for Old Men, Bridge of Spies episodes, all this and much more like Cine Diary series you can find on my channel. Consider subscribing. Again, I've been Anthony and I'll see you next time. Bye.